This week's episode of Still Untitled is made possible by the Rochester Institute of Technology. Faculty and students there have recently built a robot fish. Why? Because it could lead to a new wave of prosthetics. Now we're all hooked. At RIT, that creative team of engineers is on to something life-changing. Learn more about that project at rit.edu/untitled. Now on with the show. Welcome to Still Entitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Norm.
I'm Adam.
I'm Melissa.
I'm Kate.
Hello, Melissa Ang and Kayte Sabicer. How are you guys?
Good.
Doing well.
Yeah.
Very excited that you're in town, Melissa. It's good to see you again.
Always happy to drop by if I can.
And Kate, I haven't seen much of you since we finished the Blade Runner blimp.
Yeah, I've been hibernating, basically.
Is it time maybe to bring you in to start painting Kane?
I'm always ready to do that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think it might be time to start on Kane because I broke him out the other day. He still needs some machine parts, so maybe, let's just do some business while people listen. We'll get Brett Foxwell in while you're working on it to machine some parts and get it standing better.
That would be fantastic. I love working with Brett.
I know, he's a delight.
Yeah. Melissa, what are you doing on the West Coast?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of scoping out places potentially for the future.
So you came to the most expensive city in the world.
Yeah. I mean, New York is really great too, right?
It is. It's true.
But I'm also
from the
here.
frying pan into the fire.
Jump right in. But I'm also here to do a few more shoots because I'm also revealing a few more armor components I haven't revealed at all yet. So I actually have, you probably don't even know either.
No.
I have multiple gauntlet styles. You only saw the preview.
I did.
You only saw the preview.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So not everyone has seen any of this yet. They saw little snippets, but also remember last podcast we talked about the gorget?
Mm-hmm. You've got some of those.
I have a gorget.
Headdresses, and so all of them are a little bit more multifunctional because that's important to me. I want that versatility, but the same thing with the gauntlets. And if you're a gaming fan, you guys game, right? Or you like gaming?
I play Millipede and that's it.
I'm aware of it.
Yeah, but in games you acquire higher level armor.
Oh yes,
right?
Yes, of course.
Right.
So I have tiers of armor now. What you had was a tier 3, and I have 4 tiers.
Oh wow.
Uncommon and rare.
And yeah, so tier 3 is rare, 4 is legendary, 2 is masterwork, 1 is basic. Sorry. but what I think is important, it's not less than the other tiers. I want them to stand on their own.
Yeah.
But I also was very aware of the response. I know that people have very different tastes and interests and purposes, and I wanted to see how I could contribute to those different needs.
Yeah.
In a way that doesn't kill me.
I love that you're diving into a whole taxonomy, and your fidelity to the mechanical functioning is really neat because that's a challenge. It's a really, really difficult thing. It's the aesthetic is arguably easier to throw in, but getting aesthetics to work mechanically is a real challenge.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's interesting just because some people won't usually go for the harder part, not like the tier 3. They might start the tier 1, but tier 3 is a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
And if you want to see later, you'll see the difference.
Oh,
but
totally.
They definitely serve their purpose.
So we recently sent a crew to your space to do some filming, which will be revealed later. But I'm curious. You work out of a non-standard space,
Yeah.
and I think it's a really great object lesson for listeners of Tested and anyone who comes across this podcast because we all have limitations in our spaces. I'd love to be able to drive my car in my space. It's too small for 2 people, right? It becomes really, really tight when 2 people are moving around. Everybody's space presents different challenges. And I've asked people to tweet their tiny shops, their closet sewing kits and things like that, because I find it really inspiring. But your space is tight and difficult to work in a way that's
uncomfortable.
Well, I'm amazed at the output you bring out of that space, and I'm curious. You've been clearly working ever since you were last here. How many
hours
a week do you put into that space? Do you work out of there?
I work 7 days a week.
Wow.
So I might have explained a little bit to some people. I don't know. A lot of people aren't aware, but there is the music center company that my sisters and I run. So that's kind of like my daytime life. I wake up, start at 7. The company, the music school in Queens,
business.
the family, my sisters and I, we are there from morning until maybe 8 p.m. But in between then, I also try to find time to work on Lumecluster. And so then I might work. Oops, sorry. I might work on that maybe till midnight or 3
Wow.
a.m.
You're obsessed.
Commitment.
Because I mean, I'm fortunate that I love designing these things, but I'm also fortunate that I found what I loved along the way.
Yeah.
Even though I started this like a couple of years ago, I don't feel like a lot of people get that chance, and I feel like I'm grateful for that, but also the people who have, you know, showed me these great things out there for me to, you know, find my way into art again.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's music and art, you know, that's both in my life, and I'm very thankful for that, but it can get really tiring.
You're reminding me of when I first moved to San Francisco. I was working in theater, and I had a regular gig at a theater called Beach Blanket Babylon, which was, I worked about 3 nights a week on that. And then I did 5 days a week doing props for Berkeley Repertory Theater. And I was still doing both of those jobs. And like you were just describing, coming back to my shop, this is the benefit. It was, you know, I was 24. And working sometimes all night long just to go back to work at Berkeley Rep, because I didn't find. I mean, when you're younger, you have so much more energy. I remember thinking, like, I'll go out and do an errand these days, and I'll be like, wow, that's my day, that errand. And like, I'm like, wow. And I'm in my 20s, I used to get like 4 things done in a day. That like, I have no regrets about being tired. Right? Like that was just this moment of just pure output, just drive to keep on making stuff, to just work all night long. And it was really a delight.
Yeah. And I'm telling myself, stress is worth it. The stress is worth it, right? But then I hold the things in my hand and I'm like, well, cool. I made that. I think it's good. But you know, there's that doubt that's constantly there, and I'm not gonna lie, it's really hard for me to deal with it, and that's why, again, I think I'm finding myself here a little bit more often in California, just as I mentioned last time on the podcast, just trying to find creatives that get me. But you know, that has changed a lot of my mentality, just understanding the process and that there's no wrong way to do it.
Nope.
Because that's what I've always struggled with myself. It's like, am I doing this right or wrong? I don't know. But it makes those long hours not so painful.
Yeah.
And the feedback loops that you get from the work, like from putting pictures online and sharing that stuff and being surrounded by like-minded people, like I'm sure that helps.
Yeah.
I feel like a really good takeaway from that is when you're sitting there thinking, am I doing this right or wrong? But the point is that you're putting in all of that extra time, and at the end of the day, you're doing it. And as a person who gets totally paralyzed by, is it perfect? I have to overplan. I have to overanalyze. I don't want to start unless it's exactly right. I end up not doing a lot of the things I want to.
The perfect is the enemy of the done.
Exactly.
Perfection paralysis.
Yes.
Yes.
So I think it's great. Like no matter what, you're like in there doing it, and you're learning along the way.
But to be fair, I mean, I'm thinking a lot of other people have this. I have days where it seems like nothing is happening. It's just, it stretches on for like days or sometimes a week or more of nothing happened, but failures. But even then, that's something.
It is.
And I think that's still been the biggest struggle for me, and I'm sure for plenty of others. And that's something I remind myself, which is, you know, I might be struggling on some days, but then yes, there are those bursts and like that, and even a few hours of discovery, and I'm like, aha, I've got it. Then I'll remember all those days and weeks that I couldn't do anything, but I'm like, okay, I need to get myself in the right mindset. But
especially, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I mean, especially since for a lot of your process seems like half of, or a significant portion of it is in the digital, right, where you get no physical tactile iteration. It's just at the computer screen. And that's frustrating for anyone who works, you know, modeling. And
It's funny, though, when I'm doing organizing and research, I find the computer aspect of researching and refining and coming up with plans of attack just as satisfying as the actual making of stuff. But
that's a different part of the digital.
Yeah.
Right? That's.
I will tell you, there's a dirty secret about creation, which is that those moments of elation, they only get farther apart. Specifically because the better you get, the more you demand of yourself. The more you pursue excellence, the more you have to confront all of your own shpilkas, all of your own stuff. And it means that those high points are even more satisfying. And in the middle, you kind of develop the ability to muscle through all that shit. I mean, it's just, there's no way around it.
Yeah.
Like nobody escapes from that line. There's nobody who's just like, every day is an unfettered joy. There's none of that. There's nobody who has time to just work in their shop all the time. You get a big shop, you've got to somehow fund it. So you got to do work out of it. You got to bring people in. You don't have enough time to complete all the projects. You've got to collaborate. There's always something that feels less than perfect, but that's the nature of making anything.
And I feel like, a lot of people think, well, I should be always wired and be positive all the time. And I feel like that's great. It'd be great if we could work that way. Yeah. But
That'd
I
be
mean,
nice.
I don't know for other people. I know for me, since I'm split between those two companies, I have to shift thinking, because those are still two separate companies. You're working with students and teachers and pianos and stuff. Lumecluster is fantasy armor.
Right. Yeah. No,
Totally
it's a whole different part
similar,
of your
right?
brain.
It's totally similar, but it's also like, those interruptions, and maybe I shouldn't say interruptions, but those shifts can also really be a drag sometimes. But still, things have to be done. But people think that, it's got to be, they think it's just a switch.
Yeah.
You're supposed to just go
gear
straight.
switching is maybe the most tiring thing.
Yeah. And I think people, myself included, we beat ourselves up way too much. And I still have trouble with that. But
You beat yourself up about beating yourself up.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I feel bad. I feel bad about feeling bad, and then I feel worse because I tell myself I shouldn't worry, and then I worry about worrying, and then it just becomes this awful cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, those spirals. They're delightful.
Yeah.
No, look, I mean, the best part is I appreciate your talking about them, because I really think that it's important to be open about how difficult the process is. Nobody escapes from it being difficult. There's no amount of circumstance that suddenly turns it all into an unallayed pleasure. And it's not because of anything that we lack or the nature of people. It's just that you're creating something from nothing. And when you're doing that, it's a confrontational art.
Well, something I have found about it that is actually a really great balance is that when you're going after it and you're doing this to find your happiness or because it makes you happy, you'll have these down times and it starts to weigh on you, thinking like, no, all I'm looking for is like to do what I want. But on the other hand, when something really bad happens in your life and when you're struggling and you have that to turn to, it becomes your antidepressant. Like
Yep.
it becomes your boost. And all of a sudden you're getting much more done than you ever thought you could. And it's like by the time you pause and look around, you realize you've gotten through whatever that hard thing was. So like each time I've struggled with something in my personal life, it's like turning to your craft and your art is such a great motivator. And I feel like I've met a lot of really successful, hyper creative people who have said like, this is how you stay sane, like having that outlet.
There's a wonderful story that Baba Ram Dass tells about having been in an ashram in India when his mother died, and flying back to the States dressed in robes of a monk. And he sees his dad, who's like a Republican businessman, and his dad and he have no idea of how to talk to each other, and they certainly have no idea how to help each other through the grief of his mother and his wife dying. And Ram Dass is in the house for a couple of days when he initiates with his dad to take care of some canning that his mom hadn't gotten to yet, canning a bunch of food that she'd prepared. And after about a day of it, looking up and seeing his dad genuinely smiling at the work they were doing together, that just that labor in the face of something that you can't process or that you need time to figure out a way through is really, really healing.
Yeah, definitely.
Kayte, I don't know what your home workshop space is like.
Actually,
or if it exists.
I was just discussing this. So I used to have quite a large home workshop that is no more. I am currently in probably about a 8 by 12 foot room that
Wow.
has a shop sink and a window. Phil Tippett was generous enough to give me his old drafting table. It's amazing. As his daughter Sam puts it, it's pre-stained with red wine and frustration. It's like my prized possession now, and that takes up most of the room.
Is Red Wine and Frustration the title of Phil's autobiography?
I hope so. I'm gonna pitch that one. And so right now it's this tiny space, and it is crammed with tripods and studio lights and shelves and all of these things that I'm now having to figure out how to store up.
Yep.
Because it's quite a tall space.
Oh, good.
So the thing is, I just need to figure out how to get all of the shelving in there to make it work. But it's been really great because I went from a large space to quite a small space. So it's been helping me. And actually, I feel like I'm taking a lot of tips from you because I just love the fact that you have such a compact organizational system that I'm used to, like studio shops where you have almost this sprawling space. It's kind of ridiculous how much room they'll take up just for simple things. So I like the idea of being able to fit everything in there. I'm currently looking at prefab barns, like kits, like for a literal barn raising. And I'm going through there being like, okay, how can I convert this into a really great studio space? So
I've always wanted a studio in a Quonset hut or like a greenhouse.
Yes, exactly.
I came across something that may be of interest to you. And I sometimes just go down YouTube rabbit holes of interesting woodwork or machine work. And I found a guy who had a closet that he wanted to make maximal use of. But he knew that in his house, the function of closets may change over time. So he built what's called a French cleat system. And this is strips of wood cut at a 45 mounted to the wall and shelves that have a corresponding 45 mate with gussets that keep them held upright so that you can and he puts the cleats 2-inch wide strips every 5 inches all the way up all 3 walls. Very strong.
I love that.
Very positive, and he can adjust the shelves constantly to the needs of the closet at any given
And they don't
moment.
come out from the wall a lot. Because
No, he's got shallow shelves. He's got like 8-inch deep, but it gives him. This is the problem: is
because
he's
you're
committing
constantly
to
rearranging. Every time you see one of those beautiful pegboards, and there's the outline of every tool, and I'm sitting there going, "What happens when I get a new tool?" Like, I've committed already. This is my only layout I'm allowed to have. So how do you change that?
Yeah.
I like being able to add.
Okay,
Exactly.
Your shop, is that at your house or is that a place you rent?
Currently the small space is what I rent. The barn will go on my property.
So do you guys have thoughts about, because I don't like having the place where I work be at home. I feel like it's tough to do the disconnect. I would rather rent a location that I can keep messy, and when I'm there, that's the only thing I'm working on.
Originally, I thought that's what I wanted. And I'll tell you this. So before, I had space in my house, but I wanted somewhere external. So I started renting a studio space, and I found that I would find any excuse possible not to go there. I would be on my living room floor with everything spread out. And it's just like, wait, I'm paying for a space. Why am I doing this? And so the idea of having a place in my house or like just outside my house on my property where I'm there, I can't have an excuse not to go in and get to work, and I can stay in my pajamas. I can do whatever I want. I really like having it as close as possible now.
I have had shops in my house. I've had shops out of my house. And it's interesting. I have often felt my desire to constantly be working has always been a problem in all of the relationships I've had. And consequently, I have spent a lot of time feeling like shop time. I have wasted a lot of time feeling like shop time is time stolen.
Yep.
Like I have to go sneak it.
Yeah.
Especially when I was working on Mythbusters and I had this space. I got here for like 3 hours a month. It was all just like catch as catch can. But there was a certain point at which, the labor of raising teenage boys in this city with my partner and my ex-wife and its whole panoply of folks involved that require my attention all the time. I have found that it is possible to be more distant from my family in a shop that's in my house and more connected to my family in a shop that's 20 miles away.
Yep.
Just based on my consciousness. And it has nothing to do with where the shop actually is. It has to do with the respect with which I treat this space, with which I treat myself, and with which I treat my family and the people that I love, and the attention I give to all three of those things.
And it goes back to like the disconnect you have, and when you're in a space that you're sharing.
Yeah.
And it's not just the when I visited, it wasn't just striking the physical size. It was also the fact that it had to serve the dual purpose. You couldn't be messy in your space, Melissa, right? Because it needed also to be presentable as a place of business.
Yeah. I just feel like hearing both of your stories about this, I feel like I have a lot of things to reflect on right now because I definitely haven't really separated it yet at all, to be honest. And I feel like on my social media, I look like I feel like I have it together for the most part, but yeah, my private life and my work life is totally intertwined.
Yeah.
And right now, if I'm not working in the office, I'm working on it the moment I get out of bed. And I thought that made me happy, and I still am not sure if I found that answer, whether or not it's like what you're describing. Like maybe I'll be going through what you said. You know, you thought that's what you wanted.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. I need to find that for myself.
Hey everyone, before we continue on with the conversation, I want to let you know that support for this week's episode comes from Ahrefs. Ahrefs is a digital subscription-based software for search engine optimization. If you want to grow traffic to your website, outrank your competitors on Google, and get tons of inbound leads, Ahrefs is the tool you need. Ahrefs is an all-in-one SEO toolset. It does absolutely everything, from content research and keyword analysis to technical site audits, rank tracking, and backlinks analysis. Essentially, it gives you all the insights you need to research and monitor your niche, then rank your website on the top of search engines. Ahrefs also just launched the beta for its Keywords Explorer, rebuilding the whole tool with new technology and adding 9 additional sources of data. You can now do keyword research for YouTube, Amazon, Bing, Yahoo, etc. It's for those kind of people who would like to dive deep into analytics, into data, and really maximize their efficiency on SEO. Ahrefs has a 7-day trial for only $7. Sign up today at ahrefs.com. That's spelled AHREFS.com. Now back to the conversation.
So I have you didn't ask for advice, but I have some.
Okay. I'm ready.
Which is how I
I'm
like
ready.
to presage a lot of what might otherwise be mansplaining. Is that I learned a while back to spend time thinking how I want things to feel. Mm-hmm. So it's easy to get lost in the question of where do I want my shop? How big do I want it to be? But those are really hard questions to answer in the abstract, but I have learned to spend lots of time thinking, how do I want it to feel when I'm at work? How do I want it to feel when I'm collaborating? How do I want the space to feel when I'm in it and when I'm not in it? Like, those are more emotional choices, but they're really important ones to take care of, because frankly, asking that question made me quit jobs that were bad for me, which ended up making me available for jobs that were good for me. And I've quit some jobs I quit a film in the middle of it with 6-month-old twins. And my ex was amazing enough to say, I trust you. And like 2 weeks later, I got hired on another film that I had always wanted to work on. And I mean, that was a really hard choice to make, to give up the job. But I knew the only way I could possibly see the other one through was by making the choice based on how I want my life to feel.
That sounds like a really good guiding principle for making things in general. Like, not what the thing does or what it looks like, but how it makes you feel or how you want it to make other people feel. Even when you're like filming a video, writing a story.
Totally true. I also, I would be remiss if I didn't say, my parents gave me a tremendous amount of latitude in these kinds of choices. They paid my rent when I wanted to quit a job with people I didn't like. So a lot of, I came to that through a place of privilege, through a place of real privilege and gift from my parents as like, yes, we'll create the space for you to figure that out. And they did it before I had learned how to work hard. So I don't know what kind of picture I presented to them, but it wasn't of someone with like total focus, because that was not how you would have described me at 19. But yeah, no, thinking about how something feels, how you want something to pay you back emotionally and what you want to put into it emotionally is really, it's a great exercise.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I totally agree with that too. But if I might also add, that question still creates so much conflict in me because I have the privilege to think about that. Mm-hmm. Like, at least that's the way I feel. Like, that the fact that I can think about what I'm making, what makes me happy, I feel like already gives me an opportunity that a lot of people don't have. Granted, it's because we, worked very unfulfilling jobs. My sisters and I, we started another company together that went pretty well and got stable enough for me to move on, to figure out what I want. And I tell myself, I'm like, hey, this is a wonderful thing that I'm privileged to be able to do. But at the same time, like, sometimes I feel kind of like, well, I need to make sure that again, I'm not saying this is an okay way of thinking.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
When I say this,
Just
I stretch myself thin because I think, well, I need to do as much as I can because I have this opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, then you pull yourself into like burnout so much faster. I don't know where I was going with that.
Well,
but
I think it's easy sometimes to feel like when you're doing stuff that gives you deep amounts of pleasure that you're somehow being indulgent. That is absolutely a very real thing. I remind myself that one of the other things I do that gives me great pleasure is sharing my work with others, hearing their stories, trumpeting their stories. I mean, this is my job. My whole life is devoted to not just making the weird props that I want to have because I don't have one yet. It is also about spreading that joy and spreading that love, and in sharing the stuff that you're doing, and sharing also. Look, there's a lot of people in your position who would hold their techniques secret, and that is a way of walling off the world that I think would make you feel worse. Because you're sharing that stuff, you are opening up lines of possibility for others, and that is a real a distinct value out in the world.
I mean, I think in the end, what I'm learning as I'm getting into just creating things I love and enjoy is that I hope it makes other people feel happy. And even just when I was in LA again before I came over to San Francisco, someone asked, "Oh, are you happy with this?" I'm really happy seeing that you're so thrilled just to wear these things, and that you feel like maybe, I hate to say it like this, but like a better version of yourself, or just something that makes you feel uplifted in your own unique way, and each
transformed
person
in a way that you identify with.
Yes,
Too.
and they find their own reasons. I love seeing how people use my stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want people to see it within my vision. And some people are like, how do you want to see this? How do you want to see this in the shoot? I'm like, I want to see what you see.
That's
because
awesome.
I don't want to be trapped within my own vision. Because there's otherwise I feel like that I'll unintentionally create my own walls within my own mind of like, this is the only way I can see my work. And I don't want to stop myself that way. So when I see, I posted so many images from so many different shoots, people of various styles and professions, and seeing what they come up with blows my mind. Yeah. And it's like, oh, I never thought about going that way. Or I could say, well, it was never intended for that. Yeah. How dare you? And I think that's like, I guess that's what I learned from you. It's like you find, when I grew up watching Mythbusters and stuff, you find different tools, find new uses for them, and you just get creative.
Yeah.
And that also comes down to the things that you make. I don't want people to say, I don't want them to look at my stuff and say, you can only wear that with another like fantasy armor piece. I feel like that's where it can start.
Oh, I love that you think of it as also as high fashion.
Yeah.
There's one other aspect that I really appreciate that we're talking about here. And I realize I came to the understanding that is one of the most important parts of what we do on Tested is we share the difficulties. Yeah. We share the uncertainty. And it's more than just sharing it within the build, but also sharing the way in which it can make you feel shitty about yourself, make you feel like you have no idea what you're doing. Those are really important stories to share. And so much like YouTube is amazing. Want to figure out how to replace the toner in this printer or fix this car. Someone has taken the time to show you. Yep. But so little shows you how grueling a simple project can get when you're just like, you've stripped out your fourth IKEA screw and you have no idea how to get this thing together. And those are really important ways in which I think we help encourage others. Mm-hmm. Is being honest about that.
I find that aside from sharing with people the knowledge and the skills that I've gathered, I also like to share all my failures and the struggle that it took me to get there. Like, there are so many ways, obviously this is a big topic in which something like social media and YouTube only presents the best side of things. And I mean, and I've participated in that myself. I think at one point I posted a picture of me like sipping pina coladas in Mexico when really I was sick on the toilet, and I'm like, no, look, I'm having a great time right now. So it's like everybody's presenting this good side, but there's also something like I think I've talked about this with the blimp. It was, look at this amazing finished product, but you also didn't see the like week that I spent like crying in a ball on the floor because I couldn't get the electronics to work, and I just thought like, this is the end. But it's funny. I just really like to share that with other people because I think someone at home might be thinking, oh, I'm not as good as that. Mm-hmm. I'm struggling much more. And so there's something wrong. And I'm like, no, we're all doing it right. Like, we're all struggling this much. It's just you're only seeing my end result.
It's okay. We're all crying in a ball every now and then.
Pretty much. Anna Marie Cox on her Twitter feed, on particularly difficult days, like the day the Mueller report came out, she loves asking people, okay, everyone, send me pictures of your pets. And there'll just be this mega thread of pet pictures. Like, we have to do this together.
I'm going to change the topic
Yeah, go
real
ahead.
quick. You mentioned theater
Yeah.
and working in local theater. Well, I'm sure we all saw the local
Oh my
theater
God.
in New Jersey.
Yes, the
last
Bergen,
week.
New Jersey version of Alien made by high school students.
Yes.
With costumes and a full
Wait.
xenomorph. They did the film exactly. Wait till Norm shows you the pictures.
I
It's
feel like I didn't get to
mind-blowing.
see this.
So it was
And they don't even have a theater program in this school.
Oh,
I'm going to try to figure it
So
out.
did they have to spend like their free time? Like how did
That is a
this
good
group
question.
come together?
I'm not sure, but what's been making the rounds is a quartet of pictures
That's right.
where the environmental suits are. I'm getting chills as I'm describing this. The environmental suits are damn good looking. The xenomorph and all of this is done with like garbage cans and foam and camping and
amazing.
Those are my
Equipment,
favorite
yeah.
kinds of way to bring stuff together.
so good.
Bergen, New Jersey, 3 staff, 20 high school students with no budget. They did get some donations that amounted to about $1,000. Dumpster diving, everything scratch built. The play was the length of the film.
Whoa.
Every scene in the
Every
film.
scene in the
Oh,
film.
with a couple of extended scenes so that they could initiate costume changes. So at one point, while they're like getting Kane's chest burster ready, no, later on, at one point there a big costume change is happening, and then just the alien goes out into the audience and interacts with the crowd so that they have time to change.
It's you can Google. It's a Bergen, and like there's a scene at the end. The aliens climbing out from behind the curtains. They have the white spacesuit, the Nostromo spacesuit, and I think they're gonna
Oh my
film.
God.
They're gonna film it
Really?
with multi cameras. I
Yay!
think like
When? I
Can
want
we
to be
go?
there. I want to go to there. I want to help them make more
Yes.
props.
Where are they located?
New Jersey.
Oh, so I'm pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did
No
you
So
say?
they did it for 2 nights, on the 19th and the 22nd. Ran for almost 2 hours. I think the second night they may have filmed it.
Oh
I
my
hope
God.
did they? I hope
Hey, Adam,
maybe
the-
they were
the-
able to raise some money through this.
The Variety article retweeted.
Yeah, no, I know.
embedded your tweet.
I'm listed in the, oh, my flying spaghetti monster. I need to see this. Wow.
Yeah.
That was my tweet, my big tweet. Do you think we should convince them to do RoboCop next, Mark?
Please, please.
I don't know if that's high school. Well, Alien itself is
Yeah,
not
it's,
really.
it's all
yeah,
the same.
Yeah. Oh, did you know the RoboCop? The artwork was not a photo. The movie poster, when him out of the car. I just found that out recently. That was a painting.
Oh.
Yeah.
No way.
It is a massive, massive painting.
I think I always knew that was a
I
painting.
think I just wanted to appreciate, like,
Yeah.
in the 80s, those kind of
Where-
that key art.
Whereas you told me the reverse on the cover of NBA Jam for Sega Genesis.
Oh, yes.
I
That-
always
that was
thought was a
actually-
graphic,
That's
and
an
you
actual
blew my
photo.
mind
The
and
words
told
you're
me
saying.
it was a basketball prop.
Yeah. I love, like, these random things that, like, are embedded and associated in your brain. Like, even the bokeh in the back, that's all just painted.
Wow.
Amazing.
That's pretty impressive.
That high school doing the stage version of Alien is so thrilling. I mean, we talk about how there's no shop classes in a lot of high schools anymore. There's no home economics where I learned to sew. And theater programs also are one of the things that gets cut as soon as
Yep.
budget cuts start coming down the pike. And it is so... Those things are not ancillary to a good education. They're completely primary
Yeah.
to it. I got a lot out of auto shop. I took an alternative energy class, which was basically a way to add another auto shop class for the gearheads in my high school. And boy, they were surprised to find a nerd like me in their midst. But I had a great time in that class.
Yeah. I spent many a happy hour volunteering my time to paint sets for the theater department because it felt like the only way I was able to get like a fun creative outlet.
Where's the Glee show, but for the theater
For
department?
the theater
Yeah.
nerds.
and the shop. Yeah.
That's a good question.
I feel like there's a place for Tested to the next high school that wants to make a version of Alien. I would like to go help them.
Me too.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
in.
Wouldn't that be
Amazing.
amazing?
I'm in. All right, we're gonna start talking to San Francisco schools and see what we can drum up around
Wouldn't that
here.
be? And
Yeah.
the whole goal would be not to come in and do it for them.
No.
Just to show them how
Yeah.
much you can get done with some camping foam and a hot glue gun and foam core.
Those are my favorite kind of builds.
Right?
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think we have a plan. I'm
Done.
inspired. I'm
Yeah.
inspired.
We're gonna start a high school.
Find a bunch of students.
Yes.
So this is another thing, a place that I go when I'm suffering self-doubt and I'm suffering because my shop is not, right now I'm in production and my shop is not my shop, right? None of my tools are here. So it's very hard to use this space. But I get so much out of the interaction with other makers. I get that out of my social media. I get that out of the projects that I'm planning for the future. I get that out of seeing you guys here in the cave. We spent some time talking. We'll spend some more time talking. Maybe we'll go out for some pupusas. All that is like, all of that's food to me. It's mental and emotional food for inspiration. And especially like, when the last big public event they had at the Obama White House was called South by South-Lawn. And the day before South by South-Lawn, Jen Schachter designed, and I helped her build the SXSL letters for the lawn. And we did it with 50 kids from the Digital Harbor Foundation in Baltimore. And there was this point at which this young girl had to paint the backside of this letter twice because we had her paint it too early and then we made it all dirty and it needed more black paint. And she was like painting black paint over black paint. And she was super annoyed. And she was like, yo, is this what work is like? And I was like, yeah. This is exactly what work is like. What a great lesson to get. And I'm like so thrilled at this whole experience of the tedium and the exhaustion. And we've been going for 10 hours and yet there's the camaraderie. We're slamming pizza and Coke and it's just like so much fun.
I love that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a way of saying that, like, reaching out to other makers is another place I go to find sustenance and to find that rejuvenation.
Definitely. I've had, that was one thing that I really liked about anytime something, like, came up in my life, I had Phil Tippett right there going, you know, if you ever need, like, any kind of therapy, basically just come in and work with me. I'll put you to work. You can't think about it when you're making stuff, you know? And like, it's funny because I think a lot of my friends were like, well, that's a weird thing to say. I was like, no, that's perfect. No. And I've never felt better.
No, Phil, I mean, he might present as a cranky old man, but I think of him like Jonesy from Alien. Like he's a big tabby. He's a big cuddly tabby cat. He's sorry, Phil. I gave away your secret. Not that I've snuggled with Phil, but...
and he walks among monsters.
He does walk among monsters. Well, I think that's a good place
That's
to...
great, yeah. Melissa, where can people see the fruits of some of the things you're doing right now on this trip?
Oh, right now, most of it's on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, but, you know, always my main stuff, once you finally see, like, the finished stuff, it's all on my website, lumecluster.com. I'll have tons of images and behind the scenes. That's the fun stuff. Seeing when we screw up, or just be complete idiots, because that's what we are really here for, right? To see us be totally idiots.
Yep.
And Kate, your stuff is on Instagram as well?
I'm all on Instagram at Kayte Sabicer, Kate with a Y.
And there are a bunch of projects I know you're working on that we cannot discuss yet.
Yes.
So.
You know, all in good time. Good, you know, good things come to those who wait.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that one's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Adam, you got a book tour coming up?
I do. My book, Every Tool's a Hammer, Life is What You Make It, comes out on May 7th, but you can pre-order your copy now, and I encourage you to. You can. We also have a sweepstakes that you can enter, AdamSavageBook.com. Also, the new Savage Industries T-shirts are available on CottonBureau.com. I
gotta get one of those. Yeah.
We'll make sure we get a whole bunch here for the various tested extended family. And as soon as I'm done with production on this show, which again we still have not settled on a title or an air date yet, but it's soon. Then I go out on the book tour, heading around the United States, and this is both the best and most difficult show I've ever made. I'm really excited about it, and I also cannot wait to go out and just talk and take questions and talk about this book that I wrote. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I think that's a good place as any to end.
What's coming up on the site this week?
I have no idea because it will air in 2 weeks.
Oh,
yes. Probably Monster Palooza is probably this weekend. I don't know. Maybe. Depending on which date it airs. It'll be great stuff. I'm not going to make promises on things.
No, I think that's totally reasonable, Norm.
The future is yet to be.
It is.
All right. See you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for listening this week. And once again, Still Untitled is made possible by Ahrefs. Ahrefs is a digital subscription-based software for search engine optimization. This all-in-one SEO toolset does absolutely everything from content research and keyword analysis to technical site audits, rank tracking, and backlinks analysis. Ahrefs gives you all the insights you need to research and monitor your niche, then rank your website on the top of search engines. Ahrefs has a 7-day trial for only $7. Sign up today at ahrefs.com. That's spelled AHREFS.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.